Okay, we pick up with Bryce fully depressed. She tried to save her friend, she's losing another friend, she can't find a way to save Hunt other than trading herself for him and buying him, both of which didn't work. She and Lahaba are poring over a bunch of legal books, trying to see if maybe there's some other thing they could try, but no luck so far. So she's just fully depressed, and Lahaba's like, is there nothing we can do? And Bryce is like, no, we just have to go back to normal. And she's like, what even is normal? And Bryce is like, I don't know, sounds boring. She glances over at the package she had gotten, which came from the comitium. It came from Isaiah. Inside it is an opal that Hunt had gotten her when they had been snooping through the meat market and asking around about people who knew, like, about synth or whatever. He had bought her a little opal as a gift, and she had kept it with her this whole time up until the barge when they caught Hunt in that whole synth deal. And then she had chucked it at him and was like, you're a liar, whatever, blah blah, and she didn't want that back, so she was like, get rid of this. Isaiah sent it back to her with a note saying, Naomi found this on the barge, thought you might want it back, and the note underneath that says, like, he really is sorry. And so she's got the opal back, and they catch glimpses of the summit. They've been watching the news, but outside of, like, the original procession of watching all the city leaders and the few, like, imperial leaders enter, they haven't really seen anything. News isn't allowed to be there. Most people are still in the city, so they don't really get a lot of coverage. But from the glimpse she got of Hunt, she can see his wings have finally grown back. So I don't actually know how long it takes wings to grow back. Whatever it is, they've grown back. They're just not quite strong enough to actually hold him flying, but they're fully grown. So then, from the summit perspective, the days are dragging. It's probably like day 2 or 3 of the summit. I think it's like a week-long conference or something it's supposed to be. Rune, bored out of his mind. A bunch of the summits he's gone to before, because he's like 75, so he's been to a few. There have been like a lot more violent and a lot more arguing and stuff, and this one's just like really tame compared, and so he's trying to stay awake, but it's really difficult. Basically what happened at the beginning was the Asteri through Sandriel said that they are ordering each house to give 2,000 more troops for the war effort over in Pangera, to fight off these human rebels and their science. And like they can't really fight with that command, so they basically are just fighting about a bunch of logistics. So like Sandriel's like trying to get them to bulldoze some part of like the ocean or river or something, and Therian's like fighting back for the River Queen, being like, okay, but that's like a whole ecosystem, all this stuff. And then Hypaxia is like, yeah, and from a war 2,000 years ago, they had done the same thing, and it still hasn't recovered. So, like, are you promising to, like, compensate for, like, 2,000 seasons worth of all the seafood and whatever other stuff we would lose from this? And Sandriel's like, we'll talk about this later, and then moves on to the next effort. And it's basically just a lot of logistics about getting troops and moving troops to and from Lunathion and tanks and a bunch of other stuff. On, like, day 2 or 3, though, Micah's not there. He's not at the summit. He had been called away, and so it's just Sandriel leading the proceedings now instead of Micah, like it's supposed to be both of them together as the 2 governors of this conference, but he's not there. There's only 6 beings that could call him away from the summit, because that's like how high up and important this conference is, and those 6 beings are the Asteri, so everyone's kind of like crazy, wild that they would do that, but whatever. Can't fight with the Asteri. So Micah's just gone, and yeah, Sandriel's just continuing on the efforts to promote the war and not really caring about any of the side effects, but having to pretend to care about it. And Hunt, in his mind, is just waiting until like they go around this dance of pretending that they're actually a republic and that they actually have rights. But then at the end, all it takes is the Asteri to be like, no, this is a command and no one can argue with that. So then actually they have to just obey them anyway. So he's just waiting until they get to that point. By this point, Bryce has pretty much started living entirely at the office. She like goes home only to sleep, and then she spends the rest of her days at Griffin Antiquities down in the library, because she always has Syrinx with her, so like no point in her spending more time in her apartment. But that's an empty shell now that Hunt's not there. She sleeps in his bed normally, puts a shirt on of his, and then just spends the rest of their time in the library. She stopped wearing nice clothes and just wears like her gym fit. And there's a bunch of takeout everywhere because she's like, Jezebel's busy at the summit, like she's not gonna be able to have time to look at the feeds, because if she did, there's like takeout containers everywhere, and obviously Bryce is looking more like exercisey than all profesh, and she canceled and rescheduled all of their appointments that were during this time. Reschedule them on the calendar, because again, Jezebel hasn't looked at it yet, so for now she's just kind of like sitting there wallowing, and she uses the shower that's down in the bathroom in the library, so she really like basically is living there. She also took another Archesian amulet from Jezebel's safe, which is now the only one in the territory, and one of 5 in the whole world now, after the other one got destroyed. So she's like, I'm gonna take this again, because again, Jezebel's not gonna notice. She doesn't show up to the office hardly at all, and I don't know if she even knows that the other one was melted down. She's just chilling, talking with Lahaba, trying to pore over these legal books, trying to find some way to help Hunt somehow before they all leave after the summit back to wherever Sandriel's from. When shock of a lifetime happens, she's in the library, okay? Micah, governor of Valbara, the whole area that encompasses Crescent City and whatever other surrounding regions, Archangel walks downstairs. This man just like waltzes in. Bryce immediately panics. Lahaba, Syrinx also kind of panicking. They hide. Bryce is like, what can I help you with? Like, let's go, let me take you upstairs and show you the gallery. And he's like, oh no, it's okay. Your front door was open. And she knows dang well that front door was not open. But also all the locks and enchantments that, you know, keep normal people out would never be able to keep an Archangel out, because they'd be powerful. So she's like panicking, because a lot of these books in here are illegal. They should only be in the Asteri archives. And he just starts browsing, and she's like, panicking, like, oh my gosh. And he's just like looking around, pretending to just, I don't know, browse. He's just chilling in his jeans and his shirt, whatever. And she's like, you're supposed to be at the summit. So she's like, okay. Meanwhile, we go back to the summit. Jezebel's sitting there, everyone, you know, kind of dozing, paying attention. By this point, they've released all like the outer circles, so it's just like the 3 inner circles of most important people figuring out logistics and everything. Rune he fell asleep a while ago. Hunt is like bored out of his mind, but also like taking in the moments before everything horrible happens when he goes back with Sandriel and Pollux and whatever. And then he sees Jezebel get a text, and then she sits up straighter, which then everyone else kind of is like, oh, paying attention more to this shift in energy. She starts texting a lot. Sandriel's just continuing blah 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 going on. Jezebel then is like, excuse me, I think there's something that we all need to see. And everyone's like, yes, let's see what it is. This is curious. Hunt and Rune are peeking. Their interest is peaked, and they're like worried though at the same time, because they're like, they know that Bryce and Jezebel connected through work, but like there's just that inkling, that gut feeling, like, oh no, what's going on? What could possibly be going wrong right now? Sandriel reluctantly gives permission for Declan to broadcast Jezebel's phone to the screens that are all along the conference room. And so they pull up the screen, and they can see a text message from Bryce, and it says like, can you share this with the summit, whatever. And then it shows all the feeds of all the cameras that are in Griffin Antiquities. So all of what Jezebel sees when she's peeking in on Bryce, checking that things are good, every camera pops up. And then you see a text from Bryce that says, help. Then Declan zooms in on the specific feed that is a hidden book in a shelf, and Bryce is standing right in front of it, and you can see Micah in the back just lounging with his feet up on the desk as if he hasn't a care in the world. And Sandriel's like, he told me he had a meeting. And everyone's like, what's Micah doing there with Bryce, right? And she's like, oh, would you like some like grapes and cheese, whatever, your excellence, whatever they call governors? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. And then you can see her pretending to like do that on the shelf, whatever. And then she types, and that's when the text comes through that says help, and then she makes eye contact with the camera. She can't, they're one way, she has no confirmation that everyone's seeing it, but she's hoping. Everybody's like, what's going on? They then watch these proceedings unfold, where he starts talking to her because she's like, what can I help you with? He's like, I'm here for you. And she's like, me? And she tries to play kind of like a little flirtatious, like, oh, Governor, did you retract her earlier? You trying to go out with me again or something? And he's like, to say what you said earlier, not interested. And she's like really scared, because archangel here, and he should be at the summit, and like, not a lot of reasons he should be here. It's really sketchy. Also, he's in this whole illegal library. He starts yapping, and he's like, do you know what this library is? Bryce is like, it's a library. He's like, this is the great library of Parthos that existed supposedly based on rumors and mythology. It contains a lot of the works from the people who were on Midgard before the Asteri came, before the Vanir came, and that is why it's like illegal, and the Asteri tried to wipe it out because they don't want any proof that, if there is any, that they'd never existed here the whole time. And I can tell by like the titles of these books that this is that library. The great library of Parthos. I don't know how Jezebel got it, but like that's what this is. That's what's this here. And he's like, do you know, like that's a death sentence that you're here with this library? And she's like, I just work here. Like I didn't know that. To be fair, she didn't know that. Is she surprised though? No. But anyway, he then is like, all right, let's just cut to the chase. I'm here for the horn. And she's like, oh, didn't you know that that's like a dead end? You know, like you were there, you know the information. And he's like, no, let's stop playing games. Like, we both know why I'm here. And she's like, no. And he's like, I know that you figured it out probably around the same time I did. And she's just letting him speak and talk and whatever, hoping the cameras are on, because everyone's sitting back watching this. Also, Jezebel, no reaction when the library's brought up, but like her face is like dead serious, so she's probably internally panicking is my guess, but I don't know. Anyway, he goes on this whole long spiel about how this whole time he's been the one who's been summoning these Crystallos demons to hunt for the horn. And this whole time, every single thing that's happened, Micah, it was him. He was a partner in Redner Industries. He was there when they started doing tests on synth and like developing the synthetic magic, because the Asteri would never allow for this. They used it as a claim to be like, it's a healing drug, until later tests then showed that actually it is not very safe and doesn't do good stuff. He's the one that blackmailed Danica. He leaked synth on the market, and then Danica is the one that was trying to take it off the streets because she did steal that footage to try to, you know, cover herself and like be like, she's trying to always help the underdog, always helping people who can't help themselves. That was her whole thing. And Mike is like talking about it like that's a horrible way to be. But anyway, he blackmailed her essentially, and he's the one that made her steal the horn. So he caused the blackout and then made her steal the horn. However, unfortunately, she then obviously didn't give him the horn. And so then that's why he came up with this whole plan to get Bryce to be able to find the horn, because she knew Danica the most, she loved Danica, and because of that, like, a lot less easy to give up, and like she would keep going and hopefully find the horn for him. All this stuff happening, and basically he kept summoning these demons. He's the one that injected synth into Tertian to give them the excuse to even approach Bryce for this idea, and he's the one that injected synth in the two acolytes or people or whoever who were there present at the temple, at Luna's temple, the night Danica stole the horn. All of this trying to create suspicion. He's the one that did the bombing with the crates that was indeed an insignia of the horn. He literally was behind everything, and he is the one who visited the pack. He immobilized them with his archangel power, injected Danica with synth, and then watched her rip everybody to shreds, and then herself. And then Bryce is like crying, devastated, and at the same time keeping him talking though. So she's like, but Danica didn't reveal to you where the horn was. And he's like, no, she did hold out, unfortunately. So that's why he had to come up with this whole plan to get Bryce involved. And so then he's like, but then you know what, I figured it out. When you were trying to selflessly trade yourself in and Sandriel destroyed that Archesian amulet, that night you were attacked by a Crystallos. The Crystallos is specifically bred to hunt the horn, and that is when he made the connection that the only time the Crystallos attacked Hunt was after he had had contact with Danica's jacket, which had contact with the horn, Bryce, and so that's why it attacked Hunt. But this Archesian amulet had been like protecting her this whole time, which is honestly probably why Danica hid the horn here. She grinded it up and mixed it with witch ink and got it tattooed on Bryce's back. So Mike at this point standing awfully close to Bryce in the no touchy zone, getaway zone, and he's like stroking up her spine where the tattoo is, and she's like, ew, get your paws off me, nasty. But anyway, trying not to offend him and push him, because again, this is an archangel. And so he's like, yeah, I want this horn. Been hunting for this horn because, and she's like, why on earth would you, why are you trying to use the synth to heal the horn? Why do you want the horn? Why are you trying to open portals? The horn's power is that it opens portals. That's literally its whole thing. He's like, I want the power to open a portal to other worlds, to bring in an army, to wipe off these human rebels off the face of the planet, just squish their rebellion real quick. And then when they see that I have this great power and I've controlled the horn and all this, and I also have like similar world power, the Asteri will welcome me as one of their own. And Bryce is like, laughing to herself, like, okay, but the Asteri are born, not made. You can't just become an Asteri. But also, that's a horrible idea. She's like, what, you're just gonna open a portal to hell? And he's like, no, not hell. They wouldn't kneel to my power, but like, there's infinite number of other planets out there. I just need to find one where like my powers would grant me like godlike status, and then get an army and then come back through, and boom. That's his whole plan. He also told her, he's like, the language of your tattoo, whatever, it's not any language on this planet, it's the language of universes. And then, so that's why he's like, it's literally like a map of how to use the horn tattooed onto your back. You are the horn, and I'm gonna use you. He's like, I'm gonna repair the horn first with synth, and then I'm gonna use you to however I need. I'm gonna test it until it works, basically. And she's like, absolutely the F not. Everyone also watching the summit, like, panicking, like, holy crap, somebody get the ox there. They're calling the ox. Nobody's like, all the important ox packs for the wolves are like at the summit. So there's only like skeleton crew back home, and Sabine's like trying to call people, trying to get some wolves there. Rune and Flynn are like, and Declan are calling people for the ox, for the Fae, trying to get people there. Nobody's shown up yet. Micah pulls out a syringe, and then he just leaps forward and stabs it in Bryce's leg. Nothing they could have done, nothing she could have done to avoid that guy. She screams, and then he's just like, well, looks at the time, and he's like, cool, I'm just gonna wait a second. And she's trying to escape, and then he's just like manhandling her, yeeting her across everywhere, and she's like trying to crawl away and being thrown into shelves, and things are breaking, and then her leg is like broken, and there's like bone jutting out at some point. But then the synth, once it's injected in her system, starts working. All of her wounds and stuff, they start healing really quickly, even the crazy leg wound, okay? So then he's like trying to get her to stay still, basically, whatever, and he's like, he rips her athletic shirt off, so now it's like hanging in tatters, and she's just got a sports bra covering the back, but otherwise her back's exposed with this tattoo. And assuming like nothing's just changed about that tattoo, and she doesn't feel any different besides the fact that she keeps healing from all these wounds, as he's just yeeting her everywhere, and she's trying to signal Lahaba and Syrinx to leave, and they're not leaving. They're like over by the bathroom trying to be like, get him in here and we'll lock ourselves in here or something, like, we will be safe in here, but you'll never be safe from an archangel. So Bryce is trying to keep him talking and everything. He already had just admitted to everything, actually, all the things, and murdering Danica and the pack. And so everyone, even like Sandriel, is kind of like, well, giving him a disapproving look, but also she's like, I'm not gonna interfere with his personal issues, and everyone's like, Sandriel, you gotta do something, what are you crazy lady? So anyway, Bryce, laying on the ground after he just chucked her through whatever stuff, she's reaching for some books that are laying next to her, and he's coming, about to blast her with more power, and then she grabs a book and opens it, and then bloop, this golden shield forms around her, and then he like tries to use his power, nope, rebounded off of this, and he's like, well, that's fine, I have other ways that I can convince you, or like I can make you yield. Grabs Syrinx by the scruff, Syrinx trying to paw him, whatever. He just walks him all the way to the tank of the freaking knock, goes up the stairs to the feeding platform, drops him in. Syrinx can't swim. Bryce immediately is like, oh, you're right, closes the book, runs. Well, she doesn't close the book, she just lowers it and is like hobbling there because her leg's not healing quite fast enough. And then she gets there, and then Micah like had moved out of the way, and then she's very much like, I need to save Syrinx. So she drops the book, trying to go get ready to just get in there, but then Micah pops out from wherever he was just hiding, blasts her with his power. She's like, falls back, whatever, he blasts her back with whatever power archangels have. I don't know, like fire, ice, there's lots of conflicting imagery happening. She feels like she's burning and freezing and lots of stuff, and then nothing happened except for that she just felt like insane power hit her, but then like nothing, there's no portal opening right there or anything. And so Micah just looks at her and he's just like, interesting. Kind of interesting that she's like, oh my gosh, he will literally stop at nothing. He will just continue to use me even if I'm dead, I'm just a pile of bones. He'll just carry around my dead carcass and use me as the horn forever. If he could, if it works. So he's gonna continue experimenting until it works. So she's like, oh my gosh, no! And everyone at the screen at this point, they're also like, run Bryce, hide Bryce, all this stuff. They're trying to figure out, everyone mortified. Hunt also mortified. But when he tried to like say stuff, Sandriel was like, no. And so she's pushing her wind like down his vocal cords so he like can't say anything. He's just like, somebody needs to help her. But he can't do anything but stand and watch. And Rune is standing and watching the Autumn King, stone face, but watching Jezebel, everyone, Fury. Everybody's watching this happen and having no power to do anything because these cameras and the audio and everything, one way. That's it. So Micah doesn't have any idea that this is being broadcast. I don't know. You would think he would know there's cameras and would have like tried to fry them or something, but clearly this man wasn't thinking. Or he didn't care. I don't know, whatever it was. So she grabs another book that's near her, opens it up, points it at him, it blasts him with power. He gets yeeted all the way back, right into the bathroom where Lahaba is, and then she uses another book to blast the door shut, seals it. He's now trapped in the bathroom. It'll only hold him for who knows how long, a few minutes at most. You can hear him already banging and try to get out. And then Bryce is like, okay, she grabs the knife Micah had because he was just gonna try to fillet the horn right off her back like a crazy person. Grabs the knife, uses a t-shirt, her t-shirt, whatever, ties it as like a sheath to her leg, and then she's like hyperventilating before diving in, and everyone's like, what is she doing? Tharian's like, she's hyperventilating to get more air into her lungs, and then she just goes bloop, dives right in. Syrinx has floated to the bottom. He is not moving, and she's like, no, I will not, I refuse to lose another friend. So she goes all the way, grabs the body. Of course, as she's starting to swim up with Syrinx, that's when the Knock, who had not touched Syrinx yet, was like, boom, appeared out of the rocks on the bottom, starts swimming towards her. She's like trying to swim as fast as possible, lugging a poor unconscious Syrinx. She gets to like the chain that's on the feeding platform, gets herself up there. Lahaba's waiting at the top. Bryce has enough time to chuck Syrinx out and is like, start compressions, and she's trying to get out, and she's almost all the way out, but then a hand grabs her ankle and yanks her back in, and everyone's like, holy crap. And then Flynn, of course everyone's watching this, Flynn literally is like, holy crap, this is her ordeal. And everyone's just like, has to just sit and watch as this whole thing is played, broadcast. It's going intensely. Anyway, Sandriel, yeah, at this point she's like, I can't interfere with his personal business. And everyone's like, this is kind of crazy. He's literally ditching his duties. Like, what do you mean? But anyway, even if Sandriel happened to have some change of heart and like would offer to help or something, it would take an angel an hour to fly from the summit to Crescent City, or it would take 30 minutes to fly by helicopter. Neither of which is time that they have for the current events happening. So they all just have to sit and wait and watch. The Knock has a hold of Bryce, pulls her underwater, starts swinging around, hits her against the glass so hard that she cracks the glass, okay? She's like hit her head when she got pulled in on the metal rim of the thing, so she's like bleeding, there's like blood floating around. Lots of crazy stuff happening as she's like fighting this Knock thing. And then instead of trying to swim away and him chasing her again with his nasty claws, she pulls a move, because again, she's running out of air, she can't breathe in water. She pulls a dirty move, runs, swims up to him, right at him, swims, grabs his balls, and then every male in the summit all instinctively like flinched. They're like, ooh. And then she just like, I don't know, punches him or something, the Knock, and then he just this like classic folding, momentarily like out of it. Takes that moment to try to, she gets to the chain, crawling her way, pulling her way all the way up. This is like 100,000 gallon tank. It is a lot of water. So she's pulling her way up. Everybody's like, go Bryce, swim harder. Even Tharian and everyone, they're like, swim Bryce, like kick. She's going, losing air, but trying her best. She gets to the top, manages to get all the way out, and then the Nox hand like reaches out, but the air is like toxic to it, and then it just misses her, so she makes it out alive barely. And then the bathroom, Micah's still trying to get out. The door is heating up, like he's heating it up and it's just gonna melt his way right through. Like they have maybe minutes at best. Bryce grabs Syrinx. This is a 30-pound chimera, like not the lightest thing. A good kind of weight here. Has to now make her way down the stairs, and this is when she starts limping horrendously, and they look and her leg been sliced to ribbons. At some point the knock had like shredded her thigh, and it was deep enough that the synth has taken its time to like heal it, because she has to like try to walk on it, and it's really slow going. They make it down the stairs of the tank to the stairs to go to the top, trying to get there before that bathroom explodes. Okay, it's such a painfully slow process. Even the Autumn King says his first words here. He's just like, leave the chimera. And everybody who knows Bryce though knows that she will not, and you can see that Lahaba sees that she knows Bryce will not leave Syrinx. So Lahaba's like, keep going. And Bryce is like, no, what? Well, we can both go. We're going. As she's still very slowly limping up these stairs. And Lahaba's like, no, you go. I will buy you some time. And then she's like, Bryce crying. Because again, this is a whole emotional ordeal. Valid. Anyway, Bryce is crying. She's like, Lahaba, you're free. You don't have to do this. You're a free person. I traded your freedom last week with Jezebel. The paperwork's in my desk. I was going to throw you a surprise party. Lahaba's like, I know. I looked in your desk. And she's like, so you don't have to do this. Because at first she thought that she was like gonna do that to protect like the books, like that Jezebel would be, she like was worried about what Jezebel would do and would be so mad that she left the books. But then that I was like, no, I'm gonna buy you time, extra time, whatever time I can. And Bryce is like, you don't have to do that. You're free. And Lahaba's like, I know. Let it be known that my first act of freedom as a free person is to help my friends. I'm gonna read exactly what it is so I don't totally butcher it. The last thing that Bryce hears is her like whispering, chanting to herself, saying, I am a descendant of Ranthia Drawl, Queen of Embers. She is with me now. I am not afraid. My friends are behind me and I will protect them. And that whole thing, she just kind of repeating it to herself as she's heading towards the water tank. And then as she's doing this dance to summon what little power sprites have, and she's glowing brighter and hotter, Bryce makes it to the top, and she clangs the door shut. And then she kind of sits there for a brief moment, and is just crying, because she just lost another friend. After everything she's done, she never wants to lose friends, but she keeps losing them. Then we get to the perspective of everybody watching the cameras, and they're watching Lahaba's last stand. And she's continuing to say, my friends are behind me and I will protect them. My friends are with me and I am not afraid. My friends are with me and I am not afraid. As she's gaining more and more firepower ball, this glowing like bright ball, and she's going right towards the crack. And the Nox sees her and is like, oh heck nah, and he starts swimming to the other part as if that's like gonna help him. Utter fear, because she's going towards the crack that he made with Bryce. Right as she starts hitting this crack with her power, her little firepower, it starts spiderwebbing. Micah is just about outside of the door now. He then breaks free. She continues to say, my friends are with me and I'm not afraid. Micah then breaks through the bathroom door. He is livid. He makes eye contact with Lahaba, and then she turns around and she's like, this is for Syrinx. One last punch to the glass. It shatters. 100,000 gallons of water floods the library, shoves him right back into the bathroom. Everybody at the summit, it started with Hunt. They do the only thing they can do. They do a little salute over their hearts for her, and Sandriel doesn't notice because she's too busy watching the screen, but everybody else, they all do a little salute for the bravest little sprite there ever was. As she does that, and she sacrificed herself for Bryce.